Heavenly Stories.
A long, long time ago, the world was a mess. People had turned their backs on God, living lives full of selfishness, cruelty, and sin. It broke God's heart to see his creation so corrupted. But there was one man, Noah, who stood out like a beacon in the darkness. Noah was righteous, a guy who walked with God, trying to live a good life in a world that didn't care. He wasn't perfect, but he trusted God, and that made all the difference. One day, God looked down at the earth and said, "Enough is enough." The violence and wickedness had gone too far. He decided to hit the reset button on humanity, to cleanse the earth with a great flood. But God didn't want to wipe out everything. He had a plan to save Noah, his family, and a remnant of his creation. So, God spoke to Noah, probably while he was out tending his fields or praying. "Noah," God said, "I'm going to flood the earth, but I'm going to save you and your family. I need you to build an ark, a huge boat, bigger than anything you've ever seen." Noah must have been stunned. A flood? An ark? This was no small task. God gave him the blueprint. The ark had to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, made of gopher wood, coated with pitch to keep it waterproof. It was like God handed Noah the plans for a floating fortress. Noah didn't argue or question. He just nodded, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. His faith was rock solid. He trusted God's word, even when it sounded crazy. Can you imagine the neighbors watching? They probably thought Noah had lost his mind, building a giant boat in the middle of dry land. But Noah kept at it, day after day, hammering nails and cutting wood, all because he believed God had a purpose. Noah's days became a rhythm of sweat, sawdust, and faith. Building the ark wasn't a weekend project. It took years, maybe decades. Noah, his wife, their 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives all pitched in. Picture a family working together, hauling massive logs, shaping planks, and sealing every crack with sticky, tar-like pitch. The ark was a monster of a structure, with 3 decks and enough room to house a zoo. God's instructions were specific: compartments for animals, a door on the side, a roof with a window for light. Noah followed every detail, no shortcuts. The neighbors didn't make it easy. They'd stroll by, laughing, pointing, and mocking. "Hey, Noah, where's the water? You building a boat for the desert?" They'd jeer. Noah didn't let it get to him. He'd just keep working, maybe offering a quiet warning about the coming flood. But nobody listened. The world was too busy with its own pleasures, too blind to see the storm on the horizon. Noah's faith stood in stark contrast to their disbelief. He wasn't just building a boat. He was building a legacy of trust in God. As the ark took shape, Noah's family must have had their own doubts. "Dad, are you sure about this?" his sons might have asked late at night. Noah would have looked at them, his face weathered but resolute, and said, "God said it, so we do it." That's the kind of man he was, steady, unwavering. The ark wasn't just wood and pitch. It was a testament to obedience. Every nail driven was an act of faith. Every plank laid a step toward salvation. And all the while, God was watching, pleased with Noah's heart. When the ark was finally finished, it stood like a giant wooden monument under the open sky. Noah and his family were probably exhausted but proud. Then came the next part of God's plan. "Noah," God said, "I'm sending animals to you, 2 of every kind, male and female, to keep their species alive. For the birds and the special animals, take 7 pairs." Can you imagine Noah's face? He'd built the ark, sure, but now he had to turn it into a floating zoo. One morning, the ground started trembling with the sound of hooves, paws, and claws. Animals came from every direction: lions roaring, elephants trumpeting, giraffes loping along with their long necks swaying. Birds of every color swooped in, from tiny hummingbirds to massive eagles. Creepy crawlies like snakes and spiders slithered aboard. It wasn't chaos, though. God was in control. The animals marched in an orderly parade, guided by some divine GPS, straight to the ark. Noah and his sons probably stood there, jaws dropped, watching this wild menagerie file in. Loading the ark was no small feat. Noah's family had to organize food and water for every creature. Hay for the cows, meat for the lions, seeds for the birds. The air was filled with squawks, growls, and the smell of, well, a barnyard. Yet somehow it all worked. God made sure every animal had a place, and Noah's family kept everything running smoothly. It was a miracle of logistics, proof that God's plans, no matter how wild, always come together. The day finally came. God told Noah, "Get in the ark, you and your family, because I've seen that you're righteous." Noah, his wife, their sons, and their wives, 8 people total, climbed aboard. Then God himself shut the door. That's a detail worth pausing on. God closed the door. It was final, a seal of protection and judgment. Outside, the world carried on, oblivious. Inside, Noah's family waited. Then the skies broke open. Rain didn't just fall. It poured, like the heavens had opened a faucet. Springs burst from the ground, and water surged from every direction. The earth, which had been dry and mocking Noah's ark, was now drowning. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain didn't stop. Rivers overflowed, valleys filled, and mountains disappeared under the rising waters. The ark, though, floated safely, bobbing on the waves like a cork. Inside, Noah's family cared for the animals, probably wondering how long they'd be stuck in this floating zoo. The noise must have been deafening. Lions roaring, birds chirping, and the constant drumming of rain on the roof. But Noah kept everyone grounded. He'd pray, maybe reminding his family of God's promise. We're safe because we trusted him. Outside, the world was washed away, but inside the ark, life went on, preserved by God's grace. The rain stopped after 40 days, but the water didn't go away. The earth was like one giant ocean, with the ark drifting across it. For 150 days, the waters stayed high, covering even the tallest peaks. Noah and his family settled into a routine, feeding animals, cleaning stalls, and keeping the ark shipshape. It wasn't glamorous, but it was their calling. They were stewards of God's creation, keeping hope alive in a drowned world. Noah kept an eye on the situation. He sent out a raven, which flew back and forth but didn't find dry land. Then he tried a dove. The first time, it came back empty-handed, tired from flying over endless water. A week later, Noah sent the dove again, and this time, it returned with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. Noah's heart must have leapt. Land was out there. A week later, the dove didn't come back at all. That was the sign. The earth was drying. Life on the ark wasn't easy. Imagine the smell, the noise, the cramped quarters. But Noah's faith kept his family steady. They trusted God's timing, even when it felt like forever. The ark wasn't just a boat. It was a refuge, a symbol of God's faithfulness. Every day they floated was a day closer to a new beginning. After a year on the ark, God spoke again. "Come out, Noah, you and your family and all the animals." The waters had receded, and dry land was back. Noah opened the door, and out they went. People, animals, birds, everything. The earth was fresh, like a canvas wiped clean. Noah's first act? He built an altar and worshipped God, thanking him for their safety. God was pleased. He made a promise to Noah. "Never again will I destroy the earth with a flood." As a sign, he set a rainbow in the sky, a reminder of his covenant with humanity and all creation. Noah's family stepped into a new world, tasked with rebuilding and repopulating. The animals spread out, filling the earth with life again. It was a second chance, a fresh start. Noah's story isn't just about a flood or a boat. It's about faith, trusting God when the world laughs, obeying when the task seems impossible, and hoping when everything looks lost. Noah wasn't a superhero. He was a regular guy who said yes to God. His ark carried more than animals. It carried hope, a reminder that God keeps his promises. And that rainbow? It's still a sign that God's love endures, no matter how stormy life gets.